right, well, first of all, welcome to the very first Baltimore DevOps Days. So we're all super excited to be here today. I'll give you a little story as to how we got here. So I was a speaker at DevOps Days DC in 2015. And I remember Nathan was a speaker that day as well. And I said, man, this is a pretty awesome event. So I asked Nathan, I said, when are you guys going to plan one in Baltimore? And he said, they're actually all locally organized, and so if you want to plan one, go ahead and do it yourself. So we did. Nathan and I had breakfast across the street, right over at Miss Shirley's, started talking about it, wrote in Charles and a bunch of other folks, and DevOps Day Baltimore was born. So we're excited. Thank you for being here. I'm here to do a bit of the early morning logistics and let you know kind of what to expect for the day. So first and foremost, everyone cares about this, Wi-Fi, right? Get online. So there's your Wi-Fi information. So Columbus Center event, password CC events. So that'll get you on the Wi-Fi. So everyone do that now, so you're connected. We're gonna have you do a bunch of stuff online today. So that's gonna be important. Got that down, take a picture. Good, all right, cool. Second, do this right now, immediately. Join the Baltimore Tech Slack group. We're gonna be running the conference through there. So a lot of activity. Charles will be around. Once you get inside, you're going to join the DevOps Day channel in that Slack group. There'll be various instructions. You can ask questions. We'll route you to where the open spaces are, anything you need for conference facilities, questions you may have. Again, feel free to take a picture. Take a couple minutes if you can to join this group. And then stay. Once you're there, hang out. So all the rest of the Baltimore folks are in there hanging out, talking tech. Next, all right, so what can you expect today from DevOps Days? If you've never been to a DevOps Days, they're pretty interesting, right? So it's kind of a mix of a conference, unconference style. So in the morning, we're gonna have a number of keynotes. So a bunch of pretty interesting keynotes in the morning, followed by lunch, and then Ignite Talks. We're gonna have Ramesh come up and talk about what Ignite Talks are, but if you've never seen one, they're pretty cool. So there are 20 auto-advancing slides. You have 15 seconds per slide. Once we click go, you cannot go back, you can't click pause, don't pass start, whatever it is, right? So they're very cool, so you're in for a treat with that. Open spaces are our attempt for kind of breakouts on the fly. So we will actually live crowdsource ideas from the group. We've got some folks that are pretty experienced about doing that. We'll bin them and categorize them while we're on lunch, and then we're gonna create the breakouts. So breakouts will be 3 on this floor. There will be 3 upstairs as well. So be on the lookout for that. And a couple more instructions. So in your bag, if you parked in the garage, we asked you to, you have 2 parking tickets. These will get you discount parking. So everyone should have 2 of these in your bag already. So we've got your parking discounted. And last but not least, we'll be having a happy hour this evening. If you didn't register for that, you should. You're not automatically registered, it is free. It's open to conference attendees. We've also invited the rest of the Baltimore tech community that is not here today, that wants to come hang out afterwards, that didn't get their tickets on time. So they get to come hang out for a little bit. Then everyone should have one of these booklets in their swag bag. This is pretty important because there's prizes up there. People love free stuff. And we did the calculation based on the cost of food per person, happy hour, drinks, all that stuff. Everyone's paid probably negative $50 for the conference. So we try to keep it as close to free as possible. And we're able to do that because of all of our awesome sponsors. So if we could just please thank our sponsors. And to reward them for their dollars and their contributions, we're going to reward them with foot traffic. And so all of you can say thank you in person. In the first page of your booklet, you'll find every sponsor's logo. We ask that you go visit every sponsor and get a stamp. They've got a stamp for you. Once you go talk to them and fill them all out, you're going to drop them in that bin on this table. We will start picking out names on the second day, and you can pick prizes. We've got $100 Amazon gift cards, we've got some drones, we've got a laptop, we've got some Raspberry Pis, some other cool stuff. But you got to go talk to all our vendors. So make sure you walk around and show them love. If we get enough by the end of today, we may pull some at the end of the day, but we'll be doing them all day tomorrow. So please go talk to and visit all of our sponsors. And this is the one they told me, I must say, be adults, behave, treat people with respect, treat the speakers with respect. Take a picture of this one also. Go online, there is a code of conduct. We expect everyone here will behave accordingly, and ultimately just have a good time. So we're really excited to be here today. We're really excited to share with you guys in this event. Bathrooms, so again, bathrooms. There are two on my left, your right, on the far end. There are two downstairs in the same place and upstairs as well. So each floor, and sponsors, you will find them on all three floors. So we have sponsors on this floor, main floor around the food, and there are 5 tables upstairs also. So I hope you have your Fitbits on. You're getting lots of steps in, lots of exercise. Go visit them. And last but not least, volunteers. I'd like to thank all of the volunteers and organizers. Kind of raise your hand if you had any part of making today a possibility. So thank you all for clapping up for our volunteers today. You will find volunteers wearing this light-colored shirt. Ask them for questions. Ask them for any help that you may need. And I'd like to reiterate that all of these volunteers have full-time jobs, and it is not planning DevOps days. And so everyone's kind of doing this in their spare time. Really excited about bringing the community here in Baltimore together, bringing together an awesome lineup of speakers. And so people have been triaging talks and evaluating talks and planning and working with facilities and getting sponsors and handling the money and all that other stuff. So again, I'd really like to thank all of the sponsors and all of the volunteers that made today a reality. Now, so I talk pretty fast. So I'm going to start a little early if Nathan doesn't mind. But first, he really needs very little introduction. I'm sure most of the people here know Nathan already. In fact, Nathan is a large reason why we're here today. He played a pretty instrumental part in helping to create and get the Baltimore DevOps Days started in general. Nathan is the VP of Community Development at Chef. He helps the community whip up awesome ecosystem around Chef, the Chef platform. He also spends much of his time helping the people. People learn about practices, processes, and technologies that support DevOps, continuous delivery, and high-velocity organizations. Prior to joining Chef, Nathan spent a number of years managing operational infrastructure for a diverse range of web applications. Nathan is the co-host of the Food Fight Show, a podcast about Chef and DevOps, and he's also an occasional farmer who loves eggs. Nathan's kind of awesome. Nathan put his blood, sweat, and tears into this event, literally blood. He was bleeding yesterday, moving tables and chairs, and so he didn't die. We're happy Nathan's here today. Nathan's a good guy. If he sees you, he may give you a hug. Don't be alarmed. Nathan likes to hug people. If he doesn't hug you, you're probably a terrible human being. But Nathan's a great guy. Thank you, Nathan. Let's welcome him for our morning keynote.
And I can PowerPoint. It's pretty awesome, right? Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Nathan Harvey. Thanks for that amazing introduction, Delali. It's true, I did bleed yesterday for this conference, but Delali is the real hero of the conference because when we came and set up this stage, he looked around and he said, you know, if you accidentally step off the back of the stage, you will die. So Delali had this railing put in place. Delali is the hero of DevOps Days in Baltimore. Thank you, Delali. So, it's good. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about building a DevOps community here in Baltimore. Just a quick show of hands. I'd like to know how many of you consider yourselves, and before I ask the question, let me just give you some ground rules. For this poll, you may vote as many times as you feel appropriate. Okay, so how many of you consider yourselves developers? Okay, pretty good. Sysadmins or like on the operations side? All right, that's a good mix. And then how about DevOps people? How many of you are DevOps? All right. And then business people. Okay, if you're business people, keep your hand up because I have VP in my title. I must be one of them. That's cool. You're my people. Also, if your hand isn't up, maybe you should quit your job. Because honestly, we are all business people here, and part of being in the DevOps community, you can put your hands down now, business people, thanks for keeping it up for me though. Part of being in the DevOps community means that you care about the work that you do. That's kind of fundamental to DevOps. You have to care about the work that you do and what you're doing for your company with your customers and so forth. I want to talk a little bit about DevOps Days and the sort of the origins of DevOps itself. DevOps Days is this amazing phenomenon. Last year, there were 42 DevOps Days held around the world. This year, it's March. They have already announced 38 that are either scheduled or in the planning process. How many of you, this is your first time at a DevOps Days? Look at that. It's incredible. I have to tell you, I've been to many DevOps Days, and the first DevOps Days in a locale, in a city, is always a very special DevOps Days. You will be able to tell your grandchildren, I was there for the first DevOps Days Baltimore. Just remember that. Remember that as you go through the day. You're going to learn a lot of great stuff. It's going to be awesome. So DevOps actually started maybe 6 or 7 years ago now, and it started of all places, it actually started at an Agile conference. How many of you have ever been to an Agile conference before? Yeah, so in one of these Agile conferences, there was a series of open spaces. You could kind of propose a topic, and somebody wrote on the board, Agile infrastructure. That's what I want to talk about. That person's name was Andrew Clay Schaefer. He went to the open space for that, and one other person showed up. His name was Patrick Dubois. There were 2 people. They talked a little bit about DevOps, and then they didn't call it DevOps, of course. Then Patrick went off and founded DevOps Days, and he did the first one in Ghent, Belgium in 2009. But also what happened in 2009 was this talk was given at Velocity. Have any of you seen this talk before? You should go Google it. 10 deploys per day, Dev and Ops cooperation at Flickr. How many of you have deployed 10 times yesterday? All right, a couple of folks in the room. This was 2009. 10 deploys a day was a freaking ridiculous idea. Crazy. How many of you have deployed 10 times this year so far, in 2017, 10 times? How many of you have deployed in the last 10 years? Yeah, I hope we're to everyone. But it was all about Dev and Ops sort of falling in love with each other and cooperating with one another. And the reason that this became a thing was, think about the old days, or maybe this is current days for you, I'm not sure. Developers build things, they take those things, they throw them over the wall to operations. What this does is it sets up really perverse incentives. So what we would tell, and maybe as developers, maybe you're told this today, but what we would tell developers is your job is to build new features, to innovate, to create new stuff. And when you do more of that, we will pay you more money. And then we turned and we talked to the operations people and we said, hey, your job is to keep the systems up and stable and running. And if they go down, we pay you less, and if they stay up and are stable, we pay you more. And so we've immediately told these 2 people that they need to fight against each other. So operations became the department of no. Dev wants to throw some stuff over the wall, they want us to change things. I know that if I change things, I no longer understand the things that are running. Things are going to break, I get paid less. And that's a fundamental flaw in how do we best serve our customers. This is part of why I say that every single one of us in here are business people. We have to care about the business, not the business of what's Nathan's job or what's your job, the business of the companies that we're working with. So DevOps, what is it? For many, many years, we've had, I don't know, hundreds of definitions. We have about 350 people here today. I think if we took the time, we could come up with 400 definitions for the word DevOps. There was this fundamental or sort of foundational blog post that was written many years ago that said DevOps is CAMS. It's culture, it's automation, it's measurement, and it's sharing. And if you look around what we're doing here today, it's culture. We are here as a community. We're sharing with one another, and through the open spaces later this afternoon there will be a ton of sharing. But it's also automation. Look around at the vendors. You have Chef, you have Pivotal, you have OmniTI, you have Red Hat, HP. It's all about automation. And of course, measurement as well. OpsGenie, VictorOps, Circonis. Everyone is here doing automation, doing monitoring, and frankly, supporting this community. This is how I define DevOps, though. DevOps is a cultural and professional movement that's focused on how we build and operate high-velocity organizations, that's born from the experiences of its practitioners. I just want to take a minute to break that down. So, it's a cultural and professional movement. DevOps is not a tool. DevOps is not a tool. DevOps is a cultural and professional movement. It starts with us, with the people in the room that care about our job, that care about our customers, care about building a high-velocity organization. Next, it's focused on how we build and operate a high-velocity organization. When you think the words build and operate, it's clear, it's dev and ops. But frankly, I hate the word DevOps. Let me tell you why. When I say the word, or when you hear the word, what you hear is development and operations. And if you truly want to build a high-velocity organization, you can't do so by focusing solely on two departments within that organization. And sure, that's where the DevOps movement was born, between getting developers and operators to work better together. But it has to go beyond just dev and ops. How many of you are currently deployed on a cloud? Just keep those hands up for a second. And did you move from a data center to there? If you did, keep your hands up. Okay, so some of you just started on the cloud. We're cloud first, we're a young company, that's what we do. Some of you work at companies that are 100 years old, and you didn't start on the cloud. I don't know why you didn't start on the cloud. I mean, it was fine then. But look, if you moved from the data center into the cloud, or if you're in that transition right now, it's not just a developer concern, it's not just an operator's concern. You have to talk to finance. The way that budgeting for that happens, the way you spend money is different. And we need those groups in when we think about DevOps, if we're truly building a high-velocity organization. And finally, DevOps is born from the experience of its practitioners. So the way that Capital One practices DevOps is not the same way that Facebook practices DevOps, is not the same way that Etsy does, or that Netflix does, or that your company does. Each one of us has our own practice of DevOps. Each one of us brings our own history, our own applications, our own customers to the table, our own teams of people, and that informs how we do DevOps. Hell, we're in Maryland, right? If I say that we're gonna have a crab feast, what does that mean to you? What does a crab feast mean? What kind of crabs are we gonna have, first of all? We're gonna have blue crabs, right? If I go to Seattle, where my company is based, and say, let's have a crab feast, we're gonna have Dungeness. We're probably gonna put on bibs. It's weird. It's not a crab feast. I don't understand what they're doing. I don't even know why they call those things crabs. And you put bibs on for lobsters, not for a crab feast. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. They say, oh, well, we could put some Old Bay on it. And I'm like, no. You don't just put Old Bay on Dungeness crabs and now it's a crab feast, right? Also, you don't just sprinkle on the DevOps and then you're DevOpping. That's not how it works. So, all right, but if DevOps is different everywhere, what do we know about DevOps and how can we take these ideas of DevOps and bring them into practice within my own organization? First, I think there are some fundamental pieces, some fundamental principles to DevOps. And the first one is that we put our people first. And putting our people first is something that, frankly, as an IT industry, we're pretty shit at. Anyone here been on call before? Yeah? And woken up at 3 a.m. and told about something that didn't matter or that you couldn't control? That's not putting our people first. We need to put our people first because we know with DevOps and our history, our research, and you know this in your gut when I say it, when you come to work and you care about the things that you're doing, and you care about the people that you're working with, only then do you stand a chance to build a great product. And from that great product, build a great company. So with DevOps, people come first. People before products, before companies. Next, we're lean. We look to other industries. What can we learn from other industries and other practices and bring into our own practice, bring into our own workflows? So we use things like Kanban boards to organize our work. We practice things like continuous improvement. We want to be continuously improving everything that we do. And beyond continuous improvement, continuous learning. That's what DevOps is about. In DevOps, we fail. We fail all the time. But with DevOps, we don't treat failure as a thing that must be avoided, a thing that we can't talk about, a thing that we need to hide from. We recognize that failure in our systems is going to happen. Whether those systems are the servers that we're deploying on the cloud or the assets that we put into S3, failure is going to happen, guaranteed. See last Monday. It's also the workflows, the process that we put into place within our organizations. These are all going to fail. But in DevOps, what we do is we treat that failure as an opportunity to learn. What can we learn from this outage? What can we learn from this failure? That's what we strive for. Of course, we practice ubiquitous workflow automation. We let the computers do the things that they're great at, and the humans do the things that they're great at. And as it turns out, those two things are not the same. There are very different things that computers are good at that we aren't. And our final principle for DevOps is that we strive for diversity. This, frankly, is another thing that the IT industry is pretty shit at. I am happy to look around this room, though, and see faces peering back at me that are not middle-aged white dudes. That makes me very happy. And I say that like it's stupid for me to say that. I speak up here with a lot of privilege. I am clearly a middle-aged white dude. But we have to have a diverse set of people in the room anytime we're doing DevOps, anytime we're running a high-velocity organization. If we truly want to treat failure as an opportunity to learn, I need to have as many people with a diverse background as possible in that discussion. What could we learn from this? We need those diverse backgrounds. What should we build next? We need more people that don't look like us to join that conversation. So these are the principles, but how do you take DevOps and start building an internal practice of DevOps within your organization? How do you do that? Well, one of the first things I would recommend is that you form diverse bonds across your company. And when I say diverse bonds, like, I go back to my history, and I started as an operator, as a sysadmin, and I was working at a very, very small company. It was a little startup, and when we started down this journey, one of the most important things that I did to kick off this journey was I picked up where I sat, and I moved and I sat with the developers. That's all that I did. I just co-located myself with the developers. The weirdest thing happened. They started understanding that I was a human. And like, I felt the same way about them. They weren't just the assholes throwing stuff over the wall at me. They were like real people with real lives and families and crazy stuff like that. It was pretty incredible. But to do DevOps right, we really have to think about that entire organization. It has to go beyond just Dev and Ops. So in the room, quickly, another poll, because I guess I like those this morning. How many of you know an attorney at your office? An attorney that works at your company, like the name of an attorney. Okay, those of you that didn't raise your hand, maybe go find one. I'm sure there are attorneys that work for your company. You might need them one day, and it would be better if you'd sat down and had lunch with them before. How about HR? Anyone know someone in HR? HR is important to DevOps. If we want to have self-forming teams that come together, work on a project, and then dissolve and learn something across that time, we need HR policies that support that. We can't do an org chart change every time we want a DevOps. That doesn't make sense. Also, just a quick tip again, well, this one isn't from personal experience, but if an attorney and a person from HR at your office call you up and say, hey, Nathan, let's go to lunch today, it's probably too late. Probably too late. Okay, so that's one way. So go and meet with other people in your company. But how else can you build that internal community? One way is you can embrace the agile practice of building things in an iterative fashion. And in order to help with that, I recommend doing this practice called demo days. We do this at Chef all the time, and we see this happening at a number of our customers very successfully. So the way a demo days work, you set up a Kanban board, you invite the entire company to come join you in this video conference, and anyone who's built something that's worth sharing or they're ready for some feedback on, they put a card on the board. When it's your turn, we give you control of the screen, you share your screen, you move the card to the demoing column, you take 5 minutes to demo the thing that you've built. What this does is it allows others to give you feedback on what you've built, but it also, because you're going to do this at a regular cadence, maybe weekly, every 2 weeks, whatever the cadence happens to be, You're going to see features being built iteratively. You're going to see this new way of working. And if you're not part of the team that's doing that, you're going to start embracing those new ways of working, new ways of building things. I've gone into large customers and said, hey, you should do a demo days. And they're super skeptical at first. And then I go back a year later and they say, we started them off monthly. Today we have to do them weekly, and we have a 3-week backlog of features that engineers want to demo, which is another problem. Like, the pendulum swung all the way around. But that's an incredible thing, because now they have more people that are building features more iteratively and are collaborating together. And what's happening all the while is they're building community. They're starting to get to know each other, they're building empathy for one another, understanding what each other does, and so forth. And they didn't set out with we're gonna do a project that's about building community. No, we're gonna do a project that's about building our products better. And by building our products better and collaborating more, the outcome is going to be a community, or the side effect will be a community. At Chef, we do this, and we actually open up our demo days to the world. So we'll hold the demo days internally, we do them via video chat, and then we'll take those demos and put them on YouTube. We have a whole YouTube channel where you can go and see features that we've been iterating on. Some of them are released, some of them not yet. So I highly recommend that. Share that as broadly as you can with your community. That sort of helps on the, how do we build things? But let's talk about building community that has some empathy for how things run, and more specifically for how things fail. So in addition to demo days, another practice that you can bring into your 4 walls to help build community are postmortems. And to do a postmortem right, you have to have a good process for that. Early on in my career, I was taught that job 1 at a postmortem was, can anyone guess?
Blame.
Yes, assess blame. Who should we fire? It's that dude. Fire him. That's what we do in a postmortem. That is not what we do today. Step 1 of a postmortem is not assess blame. Step 1 of a postmortem is set the stage, set the context. We are here to learn. We are not here to talk about what we could have done or what we should have done. We're here to understand what happened and what we can learn from it. From there, you set out your timeline. You say, these are the things that happened. Here's how it impacted customers. Here are the things that we could do to mitigate this. And we figure out what are the action items to be taken after this postmortem. And now this is a very important point, especially for you managers in the room. When we figure out an item that should be an action that should be taken after a postmortem, that action item doesn't get written down in the wiki, it goes into our work queue. Whether that's a Kanban board, it's a card on the Kanban board. If it's Jira, it's a ticket in Jira. Doesn't matter where that is, we capture that as a work item, number 1. And number 2, we prioritize that. That has to have priority, and across the company we have to agree that when we identify something, a remediation task, it gets priority. It gets priority over a new feature. Because the worst thing about a postmortem is when you're in a postmortem for an issue that's just like the one 3 weeks ago, and the remediation items are the same ones that you captured 3 weeks ago. I know that's never happened to you. When we're in our postmortems, there are 2 questions to ask. How could I have detected this sooner? How could I have recovered from it faster? These are the 2 questions. The action items that you capture, the work items that you put into your queue, must address these 2 questions. How do I improve my time to detect and my time to resolve? And then, who do you invite to the postmortem? Who comes to the postmortem? I've certainly been at places where the people that come to the postmortem are the people that were directly involved in recovering from that outage. Full stop. That's the end of it. That's who's there. That is not enough people. You need anyone who is involved, for sure. Potentially anyone who had a part in building any part of the application that had a failure. Certainly anyone who is likely to have an action item coming out of this postmortem. And then frankly, you should open it up beyond that. My advice to you is to open up your postmortems to the entire company. Invite everyone to your postmortems. It sounds like a ridiculous idea. Stick with me for just a minute. First, don't worry, not everyone's gonna come. Well, I don't know how big your company is. If you're at Capital One, not everyone's going to come to your postmortem. Guaranteed. So not everyone's going to come. Second, the reason you want to invite everyone is so that you can increase the potential for learning. We want to know, how could we have detected this sooner? I've definitely been, again, some more stories from my past. I've been in places where there was a customer service rep on the front line who noticed something before we did in the technology organization. So they noticed it before our monitors went off. Customers were telling them about it, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't know who to tell. So we could have decreased our time to resolve had we known, and had we given them a way to raise a flag and say, hey, we need some help, there's a problem here. We couldn't have learned that without bringing more people in. And frankly, you don't have to do as I say, you should do as I do. Because at Chef, when I run a postmortem, we actually invite the public. I run my team's postmortems in a Google Hangout that's live streamed to YouTube. Anyone feel like they could do that at their company? No? Why not? It's just a postmortem. It's just a failure where everything went wrong, everything that wasn't supposed to go wrong. Why wouldn't you share that with the world? That's crazy. I agree. That's a little bit crazy. But I will tell you what, we've had outages that I've live streamed to YouTube, walked through the whole outage, and then have comments on that YouTube video about a customer that was impacted in a way that we didn't realize and how it impacted them, and they went and read docs on a third-party site that made the impact for them worse. There's no way I would have known that had we not opened that up. So open up your postmortems. The other good thing about opening up these postmortems, if you want to build community, if you want to build that sense of purpose within your organization, this is a great way to do so. You build that empathy, you build that understanding for one another. All right, so this talk, though, is about building the community in Baltimore. So how do we go outside of our own four walls? What else can we do? The first thing that you can do, Delali's already asked you to do so. I see some Slack windows open. Hopefully you've already done this. You've joined Slack. Baltimore tech scene has a thriving Slack community. You can come in there and you can connect with everyone that's in this room and or everyone that shows up at happy hour, anyone that cares about tech in this area. And in order to build that community, you have to connect with people. So Slack is a great way for doing so. The next thing you can do is go to meetups. How many of you belong to a local meetup right now? Awesome. If you don't belong to a meetup, I would say that for 2017, you should give yourself a goal that you're going to join 2 or 3 meetups, and you're going to go to at least one meeting of those meetups. Now, I understand how meetups work. If maybe you don't, let me just describe it to you. So typically a meetup works like this. We start around 6 o'clock, we get together, there's maybe some talks, there's usually some free pizza, maybe some beer, and we, get together as a community and talk tech. And for some of you, you hear those words and you're like, dude, 6 o'clock, what I want to do is go home. I don't want to go to more work. That sounds like more work. But trust me, it is well worth your time. It's well worth your time to invest in your personal growth, in your career development, and in building this local Baltimore community. Go to meetups. Set yourself a goal. I want to go to 1 meetup this year, 2 meetups this year. Set that goal today and then live through it. Conferences. So you're all at DevOps Days. Congratulations, give yourself a round of applause. You're helping build the community. What other conferences do you go to throughout the year? Maybe your company is giant and sending all of your technologists to a conference is cost prohibitive. Can your company bring a conference in? Can you run an internal DevOps Days? I know there are companies in this room right now where that happens. Of course, open source is another big part of building the community. We should be connecting on a human level, person to person. And sometimes we don't have that opportunity, but you can contribute to open source. Open source is also foundational to DevOps. Okay, so I want to talk really quickly about what makes DevOps Days so special. First thing is that DevOps Days are typically a single track. You noticed during the presentations, you don't have multiple options. There's only one track. Everyone is going to have the same talks. This is, I think, really important and special about DevOps Days because it means that we all have a shared experience, number one. And number two, if we had two different tracks, well, it's DevOps, so how might we separate the tracks? You could have a dev track and an ops track. That seems wrong, right? I've run DevOps Days in DC. Like, oh, well, we'll just have a government track and a public sector track. Like, that's also wrong. If we keep a single track, you will go to a talk that you might not have otherwise gone to. You might be surprised by that talk, you might learn something new, and that's what's special about it. Of course, we then have Ignite Talks, which are super fun. You'll get to experience those this afternoon. We have sponsor pitches. We bring our sponsors up here. The reason we bring our sponsors up here is we want you to get exposed to them and give them exposure to you. But most importantly, this conference was organized by a group of volunteers. No one on this staff was paid to organize this conference. And we've been able to keep it pretty inexpensive for you. As Delali mentioned, like, if you look at what you've received in terms of what the conference organizers have put out and the ticket cost, you're ahead $50. You're out 2 days of work, so like maybe that's worth more than $50, but you're ahead $50, hard cost, right? Open Spaces is where it's at though. Open Spaces this afternoon, you have to stick around for those. They are the most important part of DevOps Days. How many of you put this tag on in the morning? All right, there's one or two people here. They're like, yep, it's me. I'm the expert. You are all the experts in how DevOps works in your organization. You all have something to share with everyone else here today. Help us build this community. So I'm going to give you a couple of to-dos. And this sucks because I know your to-do list is already pretty long. But these to-dos are only for the next 2 days. Number one, I want you to be prepared to be surprised. Number two, I want you to find and meet 5 other people. And number three, most importantly, I want you to participate. Participate in the discussions that are happening, participate in the open spaces, participate on the Slack. You are responsible for your experience here at DevOps Days. The organizers have done what we can to put together a great program and to bring you here. It's now up to you. Take ownership, take pride. You're also responsible for your learning, for your development, for your career, for your teammates, for lots of important things, but you are not alone. Meet the awesome people around you, find a mentor, lean on your peers, mentor someone, and give back. DevOps is a cultural and professional movement. It's focused on how we build and operate high-velocity organizations, and it's based on the experiences of its practitioners. We are the practitioners. You are the practitioners. So who practices DevOps? We all do. And it's well-connected specialists, not generalists. People over products, over companies. The people are at the heart of this. Thank you very much. My name is Nathan Harvey. I'm here throughout the day. Thank you for making DevOps Days Baltimore awesome.
Well, get a hug from Nathan before you leave. Well, in the spirit of community, why don't you take 5 minutes and please introduce yourself to 5 people here. So we'll get that done right now. If we can have the first group of sponsors line up here for their pitch while everyone else is giving hugs.